Hogstye.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. It is Alex, it is Steve, it is Dave. It is the Hogstye, and we are how many days away from the draft? Not like 9, 12, I don't know.
I think it's
Thursday.
next Thursday, is it not? Next
1 week
Thursday?
from tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
one week from
one
tomorrow.
week from today for those of you listening the day we record this.
That is correct. Well,
Yeah.
the day we release it, at least.
Yes. Yeah.
Very
we might
true.
have to have a discussion of when we're actually doing things.
And maybe we'll get a back-to-back year of Penn State first-round pick draftees.
You're just gonna run out of jersey money, Dave, if that happens.
You're absolutely right.
It's funny. I never bought that Matt Ioannidis jersey. So
I always thought, Alex, you were wearing like Matt's like jersey around the house when you were walking around, and he gave it to you,
Yeah,
because he's so much bigger than you, and so it would like come all the way down to below your waist, and
Yeah, it's a onesie, is what it is.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe he just grabbed it from you when he needed to play games or something, just rip it off.
I don't even know what games they're playing.
Well, the sad part is, he and I probably could wear the same size jersey. I'm a pretty big, upper body.
But he's about 4 or 5 inches taller than you. What are you, 6'1"?
Oh no, I'm 6 foot flat.
Okay, he's like 6'4", 6'5", so he was a lot bigger than you. Yeah.
That's true. I meant more just the body fat.
Well, yeah, you may be, fat, but I mean, Matt liked you fat. It's okay.
A lot of people like fat guys.
Yeah,
fat guys are funny. There's that
did.
rule. If you're fat, you're funnier. So,
it must have been bad for you to have him get traded away and kind of lose that connection you had with him and all that.
It was tough, like not having any Temple guys on the team for a while.
Long distance relationships never work,
Yeah,
and I think
they don't.
Is he still rostered on a team right now? I assume he is. Isn't he?
I think he got cut from Carolina because he went there because of Matt Rule. And I think he left there, and maybe he went to Philly?
Well, let's see. Matt Ioannidis. No, he's still in Carolina, according to Wikipedia, for whatever that's worth. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so he's still in Carolina. Thank God he's
still
not in
hanging
Philly.
on.
Yeah, right.
We would regret it.
Everybody would regret Philly, except Dave. I have one of my law firms I work with. The guy's in Philly, one of the people's in Philly, and every time I talk to him, I say, "Is the city burned down yet?" And he always says no. He's lying to me.
Well, I mean, you wouldn't tell in some parts. And,
yeah,
I mean,
true.
That's right. That's right. I had a discussion today about 2 Philly Eagle fans were talking about one was talking about how stupid the fight song is. It's like we're the only team that has a stupid fight song. We have a fight song. It's dumb. I'm like, dude, we're like the first team to ever have a fight song. Because he's like, no teams with fight songs win championships. I'm like, we won 3 of them with a fight song, man. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
What is Philly's fight song?
Fly, Eagles,
Fly, Eagles, Fly.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So.
A lot of teams have fight songs.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Just most of them are so bad that you don't even know them.
All
the Minnesota Vikings have a fight song. I think Prince wrote it, and it's just awful.
Oh, really? Well, and the Pittsburgh had that like R&B song. Remember from several years ago?
Yeah.
Black and yellow. I mean, that's
something
ridiculous.
Like that.
And
the Cowboys have one from the '60s that's very terrible.
Well, and I think some like wannabe rapper wrote something for the Washington Sea Words this past offseason.
Yes, there was the stupid
with the left hand up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. That's
so
even dumber than the name itself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's awful.
What if I put my right hand up? Does that qualify?
Well, see but the microphone's in your right hand, so that's why they had to put the left hand.
I don't have a microphone. It's sitting on a table. It's
you
right
do have a microphone.
Yeah, but I'm not holding it. It's sitting in front of me. I can put my right hand up. It'd be okay.
Yes, I know. There's a thing called a mic stand.
Yeah, I know. See, I mean, I don't get it. What's special about the left hand? I mean, what are you doing with your right hand?
Well, I just explained it. I don't know how else to help you here. I explained why there was logic to it, but
there isn't logic to it though.
No, there's not. Not really. All right. Well, we vamped enough because it's a light episode, guys. Which you would
Vamping
think
normally
before the
means me
draft
just
a
saying
lot would be going
idiotic
on, but
things.
this is when teams get quiet, right? Like teams don't make a lot of moves at this point. There's a few things going on nationally. We'll get to those two. Uh, the local news after our emergency podcast. It was officially announced, I believe, Monday, or maybe it was early Tuesday, that the Harris bid was submitted to the league, supposedly by the Harris side. The Snyder side didn't want to deal with it, which is unusual.
Does it really matter? It's a
It doesn't
distinction
really
without a
matter.
difference.
But the league is now in the review phase, is what they're
Right.
saying. Some differing opinions that I saw online on how long that'll take. I saw the guy from Fox Business who's been like all over this, the guy who's like the Dan Snyder friend,
Yeah.
Charles Gasposito or whatever his name is. He was saying it's getting fast tracked, but they're saying standard time is like another 3 months for this.
It
or
is
something.
standard. I can answer this. Standard
Yeah.
time is like 3 months.
Yeah.
Now this Charles Gasparino, whatever guy,
Yeah.
he's in bed with Snyder, and so he's going to try to speed it up. It's going to go quickly.
Sure.
But it normally takes about that long. Yes, because I'm telling you guys, it's not just like, ordering a background check. This is like a detailed analysis of financing because they do not want somebody to roll in there with no money, and get them in trouble. So that's why. And so,
yeah.
But the reason, the argument for it being fast tracked is that they already did some basic level of analysis on Harris before last year.
Right.
So that's the argument.
Well, the other thing is there are 17 co-investors supposedly. We found that out from the Times.
I did see that. I was a bit surprised that Harris. What it was Harris had 30%. Rawls, is his name Rawls? Rawls had 12%, and Magic Johnson had about 4%. That part I guessed. And then a bunch of other 17 investors split up the rest into various investment groups. But I was a bit surprised that Harris had that little equity. That's about as low as you can go.
Yeah. Well, I think the logic from what I'm seeing is that, and not logic, but with the price point of these teams getting up to where it's at, it's going to be harder and harder to find anyone who get.
Well, I mean, of course, granted, but I was still surprised that 30% is the absolute lowest you could go,
right,
and still be a legit managing shareholder in a
and
company.
Supposedly
like
he doesn't want to sell his other sports teams, which maybe why, so he doesn't have all that equity that he'd get from selling the 76ers or
maybe
Jersey
it's just,
Devils.
Most NFL owners own more than that.
Sure.
And he might over time just actually start buying one out here and there and so forth. So I mean,
by the way,
so possible.
I did live on the air on IJB little bit of loan calculation, and it just so anybody's wondering, the debt service on a $4 billion loan is $24 million a month.
Wow.
Jeez. And so it's if the team collectively, and that was just $4 billion, if they borrowed more than that,
right.
So I just kind of guessed $4 billion because a third they got to come up with equity, cash, and $2 million.
Right.
And so that puts it at the revenue. That puts it the annual debt service about $270 something million a year.
So that you have to pay basically a starting quarterback salary every month.
Yes.
20 is what $24 million is.
Correct.
That is nuts.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, doing those numbers, and we know what the team was kind of bringing in was not equal to that, which is interesting.
Well, see, I mean, if Forbes valued the team at $5.5 million,
right,
they have a basis for this. They're not making stuff up.
Typically
you're valuing companies based on, in large part, on revenue. And so I don't think we do know the real revenue. What we know is we can guess at the team's share of the league media revenue. That we guess that, but there's a lot of other revenue. There's ticket sales, local ad revenue. It's
the number that was put out a few months ago, and I know you're not as focused on this stuff as I am, obviously, was that when it came to the local revenue, the individual, they were down to about 150 million.
Oh, I'm sure. Don't doubt it. I mean, I'm sure. But
so it's that plus whatever the shared revenue is, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
Well, of
let's
course,
say,
that is what it is.
yeah. So what would that be? About ballpark 350, 400, something like that.
Presumably, if Forbes valued him at 5.5, it's got to be that much.
Yeah. So a big chunk of that's going to your debt service.
Yes,
In theory.
that is correct.
Yeah.
Which, you know what that means, of course. For the people like Dave, that means increased season ticket prices
Right.
starting next year.
And
That's
it
what
also
means.
means it's going to be even tougher with the stadium debt revenue on top of that
Well,
eventually.
here's what they're going to do. Are you ready?
Yeah.
PSLs. That's what
Oh,
it's going
sure.
to mean.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yes, it's going to mean a PSL.
One, arguably, in my opinion, the biggest scam in all of sports fandom, the PSL.
I mean, it's not far from like if you buy a concert ticket on Live Nation and they advertise it for $150 and then charge you another 50 in fees. That's not unlike that.
Yeah.
You know.
Or
Just
the new
roll it into the
insurance they put on there that you can buy.
Yeah, it's just a ridiculous product. I mean, it's not to me. Just advertise the cost of the ticket at $200, and for the case of PSLs, split it up, roll it into the annual fee. Split it up over the course of 3 years. I mean, whatever. So
I don't remember how they work, but it's usually a big number up front, right? With PSLs.
Yeah, it's like 10 grand up front. I mean, depends on what seat you're buying.
Sure.
And what exactly does a PSL do for you anyway?
Well, a PSL is called a personal seat license, what it stands for. And what it means, it's literally a made up thing that the sports industry made up that literally just says you now have the right to buy this seat. That's all it is. If you don't have a personal seat license, you can't buy a license to get a seat because your ticket is really just a license to use the seat. Legally, like from nerds like me, a ticket is just a license to access the facility and use the seat. And so what this is saying is, you now have a license to get a license to watch the game.
Right. They're basically double charging you.
It's a made up excuse to make more money. It's as simple as that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It really is.
Yes.
I'm honestly surprised it still goes on, but
So, well, look, I mean, if you put $1 billion in a stadium, somebody's got to pay for it. Okay.
I get that part.
Because let's just do some basic math.
Yeah.
I didn't do a $1 billion loan, but let's pretend you take $1 billion construction loan. Well, divide 24 by 4 and you've got 6. And so that would be $6 million a month. And so if you have 2 games a month, you need to make more than $3 million a game. And so
you're probably not making that off conventional sales. You're right.
Well, I mean, but the concessions and stuff. But let's pretend, for the sake of the argument, you got sellouts, 65,000 people, and let's pretend that the tickets are $150 each. That's
Average,
about nine.
sure.
That's about $9.5 million, $9.75 million.
Okay.
But remember, I mean, some of that revenue goes to the league. It's not all kept. Some of that goes to a very small amount of it goes to other side. And then you got to pay employees. You
got to pay for electricity, little things. Yeah.
Yeah, not a little amount. And then you throw concessions in there, and so that's not net. That's gross.
Right.
So they're going to make money on it. Is my point. But they got to make money somehow.
Yeah, I know. I get it. It's just when you get in these numbers, they are crazy numbers when you start thinking about them.
Speaking of crazy,
I think we got to talk a bulk of this show about Brian Davis, the guy who claimed he put in a $7 billion offer on this team, despite no evidence. Let's say that. And so he did 2 spots. We're going to mostly talk about the one on the Junkies, right?
I listened to 35 minutes on the Junkies. Whatever you guys sent me.
It's the same. Yes. I think we all listened to that one.
Yeah.
That's what we listened to. Yeah.
Yeah. He also did something on USA 9, one of the local TV stations.
That probably wasn't nearly as interesting if it was on TV station.
Well, it wasn't as long, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You're not getting that on TV. That's the one thing that radio gives you that TV will never be able to match.
A license is just crazy for a long time.
Yeah. So I didn't write down a blow by blow of everything he said because I don't have that kind of time. But we'll go over some highlights. The one everyone's focusing on, and I want to focus on the least, honestly, the stupid line he said about, well, my money comes from white people. It comes from Jewish and Italian people.
Okay, can I just say this?
Yeah.
Brian Davis is a racist, okay?
Oh, there was definitely some racism there.
Brian
Yeah.
Davis, one, the idea of saying my money came from white people is racist in and of itself, and you could take it as a racist statement against many different groups. But the other thing that he kept saying was he's trying to do this for black people. Well, what about us? What about the white people? Do I not count as a fan anymore from this guy? He's focused on race. I think he's a racist. I don't want him any part of the NFL.
Well, just to expound on that, though. Well, one, he says that because of the whole Middle East, Saudi Arabia connection.
Well, I get it.
That was
but
rumored out
okay.
there. I get
Which,
that.
by the
What
way,
he could have said is
I
my
believe
investors are from Europe.
Sure, right.
You know?
But the minute he said that, and let me tell you something, Twitter just attacked him on all that. And I'm talking, I'm talking about across the whole gambit. Across the gamut, they all pretty much said the exact same thing in what you said.
Yeah.
Along the same lines.
It's a rare person that can offend everyone.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah. Now, look, if his intent is to try and help PG County, and that let's assume that's a true thing, that he's just, play that game. That's true.
Okay.
I have no problem with anybody trying to help their hometown.
No, of course not. No, that's good. The problem was I'm going to help the black people in here. But mind you, I most people would support efforts to help out economically disadvantaged areas, which in large part, unfortunately, are minority based. But that's not what he's saying. He said just the black people. So like the three of us who are all white do not count in this man's eyes.
Yeah, I thought his statement about claiming that the Harris Group is going to possibly move the team out of the area
with no basis for that whatsoever.
Yeah.
No.
Now,
right.
Is he just saying the area as in PG County? Because, that probably will happen.
That's not what he meant, though.
Yeah, I know. He was trying to intimate that they're going to move it to Philly.
As a matter of fact, I would argue that the Harris Group would be less likely to move a team than other owners. He's got a fundamental base of sports on the East Coast.
Right.
Already. There's a
and
team.
He's from the area.
There's a team in Philadelphia currently. There's two teams in New York.
Right.
He's not going to move Washington to New Jersey or Philadelphia. And he's
And
not
what
going
other
to move
market could he go to?
Yeah, exactly. He's not going to move to Carolina. He's not going to go farther up the East Coast. I would argue that
London. Yeah.
This is probably the only place that Harris would want to own a team. He doesn't want to own like the LA Rams.
No.
It fits with his business profile. And so I think that's dumb.
And in fact, from reports that I kind of read a little bit, is the fact that he's already been in contact with DC politicians on not necessarily, well, possibly reclaiming the land or RFK is, but or at least doing something in
generally
DC
in
area.
DC.
Yes.
I mean, that's reasonable.
Right.
Which is, by the way, I mean, I said it last week. Any responsible businessman is probably already making those conversations happen.
Correct.
About where to put a new stadium. Because
yeah, and you're right.
You need that.
Absolutely.
You need to put as much lead time on that as possible. So him contacting them makes perfect sense. But yeah, I thought that was one of the crazier claims that we heard there. Steve, we were talking about that before Dave even got on. The whole intellectual property thing. One, I don't think Brian Davis actually knows what intellectual property, selling your intellectual property technically means, because he's not using that phrase correctly the entire time.
You want me to translate this? So
sure, you give me your translation, because
so what he said in this Crazy Junkies interview, he contradicted himself a couple of times. So the Junkies are trying to nail him down on whether they wanted to know fundamentally whether he personally has $7 billion in cash.
Right.
That's what they kept, and he kept dodging the question. And at one point he said, I sold my IP. At another point he said that his business was valued at $50 billion. And I'm going to translate all this. And then he said, my investors allowed me to have 10 billion, which would be 7 for Dan, 2 as equity, and 1 for the stadium. So all those things sort of don't make sense. So the easy one is the $50 billion business value. So what he's saying is this. He's projecting. Now, mind you, this business is Urban Echo, which hasn't actually done anything. Apparently they own some property in
North Carolina.
Yeah, but the idea behind it, according to Davis is that this new renewable energy source is going to power urban areas, hence the name Urban Echo. But they haven't actually done it. So what he's doing is he's projecting a $5 billion a year revenue and then multiplying that by 10. And that's how he's valuing it. And that's not a totally abnormal way to value. But so it's kind of like Shark Tank when somebody walks in, and one of them said, the junkie said this on the interview.
Right.
You walk in, you go, I watched one the other day. These people had a donut, like a ice cream donut thing. And they'd come in and they'd say, okay, we have this much revenue. Yeah, this much revenue. And so this is the valuation. And the Shark Tank guys went, oh, no, that's wrong. Well, what they're just doing is they're taking their annual revenue with multiplying it, and that's so that's what Davis. But the flaw in it is that he's just projecting $5 billion out of thin air. It might not be anywhere close to that. This is why, Dave, you pointed out last week that you had seen in print, and I saw it too. He's valued last year at $15 million. Net worth. That's why. So that's the easy thing. What I think is going on. Go ahead.
Well, just. Now his idea is actually not a terrible one. Build a bunch
I didn't say it was, but the idea that he's turned it into revenue, it's speculative revenue is what it is.
Yeah.
So the net worth he's claiming for Urban Echo is a speculative based on his projections of revenue. Okay. So, but in terms of this IP stuff, so whatever the idea is, and I didn't bother to figure out what it is.
It's basically putting solar panels on top of your condos. So that you get money for that.
So there's IP in that, intellectual property that you can patent, and this is what he has apparently done. And so I think what he's trying to say poorly is that he has either allowed people to purchase equity in this, or either that, or he's taken loans that are leaned up by in which the lenders, which are overseas private equity guys, now have a leasehold or a lien interest in this IP. One of those two things is true, and so if he really does have $10 billion in the bank, it's probably one of those two things. And so he dealt one way or the other. He does not fully own clean, unencumbered intellectual property anymore. He doesn't. And he admitted this by saying my investors allowed me to have 10 billion. This is why I'm saying I think it's probably that he's got some kind of loan and they are taking an interest in exchange for the loan in the property. I think that is what's going on. So two things are true at once. He may legitimately value his business at 50 billion. The question isn't that. The question is, where's he getting annual revenue? And that's out of thin air. And then two, this IP, he may have sold a part of it, or he may just have taken a loan and not want to say it.
I just don't think it's an actual IP. It's a business model. But
well, it probably is IP. I mean, if he has this, whatever the idea is, that's intellectual property.
Steve,
okay?
It's putting solar panels on your roof. It's not.
I don't know. I'm saying I didn't look at it at all.
It's not. That's not.
I'm not saying it's a great idea. I'm saying it's not. It's possible and normal to have intellectual property and then either sell an interest in it or trade it for value in the form of a loan or something. That's one of those things. What he's done here.
Yeah, if you have
he may be lying
or a copyright, yes,
it's not a copyright.
No. But I'm just saying in general, those are intellectual properties that you can sell.
I mean, and so I think the guy, based on the interview, I thought you guys, I thought the guy was a charlatan, just a total fraud.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's
Who's almost Dan Snyder 2.0
because he might have a legitimate business that he's trying to start up, and that's great because the world needs housing. Putting solar panels on it to make it so you get more money. Fine, I get it. But it's not. You're not getting 10 billion. I don't see who would give you 10 billion for that.
I have the trump card. I told you, Alex. I have the trump card for this.
Yeah, you said you had a hidden thing.
Yes. Anybody who is a serious bidder and a real bidder that's been accepted by the broker, Bank of America, he would have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. A non-disclosure agreement does not allow you to go on a local radio station and talk about things like how much you bid and where the money's coming from and all these ideas. That tells me that he's not he might have sent a letter into the, Snyder or whatever, but that tells me they have not taken him seriously as a serious bidder.
Sure.
Otherwise he wouldn't be on the radio because he would be barred contractually from doing that.
Yeah,
Right.
Notice that Josh Harris hadn't said a word.
right. Harris hasn't said a word the entire time.
Only thing that's anybody said was Magic Johnson said we submitted a bid on like the Good Morning America or whatever, the Today Show, whatever it was.
And I mean, at that point, it had already been kind of leaked what the bid was
Yes.
going to be and everything.
Right.
So,
But my point is, Magic didn't go on and on for 40 minutes about
No.
any of it.
no, it was just such. There were so many wild little moments of people not able to get that what he was saying in that interview.
Well, either he's too dumb to know, or I think more likely he's trying to hide what is really going on.
Right.
He could have said what I just said.
Mhm.
You know, yeah, I have this IP. I sold a part of it to raise the cash. Or
Sure.
I have this IP and I took a loan from these overseas investors and in exchange that they now have a lien on my IP. He could have said that, but he didn't.
Yeah, and in all fairness, he was talking to the sports junkies. He's not
You
talking
don't know what I know. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think one of them actually went to law school, but he's been a DJ for 40 years.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, so net worth is net, okay?
Right.
So just because he might have raised $10 billion doesn't mean he doesn't have 9.5 in liens, which means his net worth is not $10 billion.
Mhm.
This is what net worth means.
And dumb question. This is my dumbest question because I don't know. If somebody generally gives you any amount of money for your business IP, you can't claim that as your personal income right away, can you?
In like a vague, non-businessy sense, you might, because if somebody literally handed you money,
Right.
in some common Webster's dictionary sense, that's income, right?
I
And so
guess, yeah.
that's like I see. He's intentionally what the guy is doing is intentionally mixing up business terms and talking to a bunch of radio dudes who don't know what he's talking about,
Right.
and he's trying to intentionally hide what is really going on here. And this is why his net worth was listed at 15 million last year, and this is why he's not on the Forbes list because I looked.
Yeah.
All these things are true. So I mean, I think it's speculative at best. This IP he has, and nobody. He does not. He might have 10 billion in a bank somewhere, but it's all tied up in liens.
Yeah.
And so the tell was when he said my partners allowed me. This tells me
I picked up on that
tells
right
me
away.
it's a bunch of loans or equity investors or something, and they allowed him to withdraw. Maybe it is what they did is they allowed him to withdraw a bunch of equity out of it in exchange for some kind of future earnings or something. I mean, it's something like that. This guy isn't worth anywhere near what he says.
Supposedly, and I don't know if you saw this one, Steve, because it wasn't mentioned.
All I saw was the 40-minute thing and a couple of tweets.
Well, did they mention the Sean Merriman thing in there?
They said something about Sean Merriman. I don't know what it was all about.
Sean Merriman apparently had business dealings with Brian Davis a few years back. Everything fell apart, and Merriman had to sue him. And so Davis still owes him like $4 million.
Okay, so he mentioned this in that interview. And what he said was he mentioned Scottie Pippen. And he said a bunch of something like a number of other athletes or something.
Money from a lot of athletes.
And he said he brought in the wrong people, and he sold some other asset he had 10 years ago, and apparently, according to him, paid them all off, whatever that meant.
Yeah. Well, did Sean Merriman have that kind of money 10 years ago? I don't remember when he got.
He probably had $3 million, wasn't it? $3 million.
Yeah, I think so. Well, he's my age, so I guess he could have been in the NFL by then.
Marion, yeah, of course he had millions,
Yeah. 20, he would have been playing for a couple years by then.
Absolutely, I'm sure Merriman had a few $1,000,000 laying around. Certainly.
Yeah. He made some good money.
I mean, am I wrong here? I mean, I thought the whole thing was a total fraud. I think if he was a real bidder,
you're not wrong at all. I think
be on
none
the
of us
junkies at all. If he was a real bidder, he wouldn't be talking on the radio for 40 minutes. And all of this stuff was intentionally designed to either he's dumb and doesn't know what he's talking about, or more likely he's just trying to deceive the public by throwing out a bunch of business school jargon and hope people don't notice.
But Steve, now I'm not a business school jargon guy. I thought he came off as really dumb. Like,
because he doesn't want to admit the truth. Okay.
if you concussed me, I think I could outsmart him still.
Well, I'm not saying he's a genius. I'm saying he's either really dumb or
Right.
he's intentionally talking in a way that he's trying to hide what's really going on.
Sure.
Notice he wouldn't answer the question. He
Of
didn't
course.
say, "Is your net worth this?" And when they said, "Is your net worth $7 billion?" he would divert to either the line about my investors allowed me to do this.
Yeah.
You know, my business is valued at this. He never said I have a net worth of this. And then he would say I have the cash in the bank, which may not be true.
It's not even saying I can get this kind of money together, no problem. You know, like he's working his way around that. Yeah, I picked that up too.
Yeah.
Dave, I mean, you saw how fired up everyone on Twitter was. What were your kind of reactions to it all?
Well, I know. Well, to go to the interview real back again, I know one thing that I don't know which one of the junkies that mentioned it, but apparently there was an idea that he's kind of Brian Davis is posturing himself for a potential lawsuit against the NFL or the team because he knows they're going to reject him anyway. So that he wants. So the idea is that he wants to do this, and then the NFL reject him, and you say, well, they're rejecting me because they don't want a person of color as a majority owner. Well, at least he followed up and said, well, no, that's nonsense. I in no way have no plan on it. Sure, but so I mean, at least they kind of corner him a little bit with that one. So, but but I think with some other comments he made, one thing that kind of got people were just how he wanted to take FedEx Field and update it and put a 12 with a 12-month
well, he said his
make it a
roof,
dome, basically.
retractable roof over top,
which would make it a 12-month a year asset, meaning you could have Taylor Swift in there in February. Is what he's saying.
Yes. So
now, I'm not an architect. Steve, you do a lot of this. I don't think FedEx is that salvageable, honestly.
I don't know. I mean, I don't have expertise in that. I mean, yeah, I deal with a lot of people, but my extent of it is, here's the engineer guy over here. I need to see their contract. That's what I do.
But what exactly are you going to salvage that stadium? You have a bunch of seats that are in obstructed views. They're still not fixed. They put little monitors in there.
You got a lot of rusted pipes.
Isn't this a lot like putting glammy spinning wheels on an 87 Chevy Nova?
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of what you're talking about? I mean,
kind of. Yeah, you're putting gold-plated wheels on the Chevy Nova.
Yeah, right. And that's what I mean. Why? Let's just buy a new car. If you're gonna, why would you spend $1 billion to do that? Now, by the way, what Chris and I said we talked about this on IJB. None of this Brian Davis stuff had come out, so we just kind of mentioned him in passing. But here's the other really bad tell in this: $7 billion. The current high bid is 5.8 with another 250 million coming over 2 years, which is contingent upon settling lawsuits.
Right.
So call it 6 for the sake of the argument, because some of that money is going to go to lawsuits. You're going to bid $1 billion over. That's 14% or so, 13-14% premium. Why would you do that? Why doesn't he bid 6.4 million?
I mean, I would assume you just start at 6.1 and see if Harris will.
Of course you would.
Right.
Yeah. What is he? This guy is doing it to get attention. Maybe he's just a flat out con artist. I mean, this is why, like I said, this is why nobody's taking him seriously.
Right.
Is this reason?
And I saw another interesting little tidbit as I was scanning Twitter just before the show. I think it was Craig Hoffman. Was breaking down the whole thing about Davis's claims that he's working with PG County to revitalize that corridor. No one in PG County has ever talked to him, apparently. Like none of the politicals or anything like that have really had any communication with him.
Well, and he might have picked up the phone and got a secretary, and then he called that I'm working with.
Right. But I thought.
Well, that was the other thing. He threw out in this interview. I mean, a ton of plans. He was talking about. Is there a Six Flags in Maryland?
Oh, I forgot that part. I
He
wanted
was
to
talking about Six Flags. I think he was talking about building a Six Flags, I guess.
No. He wanted to
Yeah.
buy the Six Flags in Maryland, which is in Largo. It's
Oh, okay.
further down the road outside the Beltway from the stadium. He thought Dan Snyder still owned it.
Oh,
and he wanted to buy
I couldn't
that from
figure out what
Dan
he was
Snyder.
talking about. I didn't know there was
Yeah.
a Six Flags in Maryland.
Dan Snyder hasn't owned Six Flags in 15 years.
Well, not only that, you know why he doesn't own it?
Yes, I do.
There was a hostile takeover
Right.
to get rid of him
After
because
he
was so
bankrupted
bad.
it.
Yeah, after
Yeah, I
he
wonder
bankrupted
why. Yeah.
But he was
Yeah.
talking about all kinds of major development, like decades of development, and he's a good. I mean, it's just he's a good talker in that regard, I guess.
Sure. He's a good talker, and like I said at the beginning,
He's not that good a talker though, because again, the business stuff made no sense.
okay. But like
He
I
threw out
said
a
at the
lot of
beginning,
grand ideas.
if his intentions are pure that he wants to up, great. You don't really have it together to do this, though.
No.
You know, like
Let me tell you something though. If this guy buys the team, this might truly be the end of my involvement with the Washington.
Oh, it would be
franchise
such a
forever.
dumpster fire. It would be such a dumpster fire.
I might
so
cover it
quickly.
for a while just to laugh, but I'm not. I don't know if I would even want to cover a team owned
It
by
would
that
be
No,
guy.
Dan
no.
Snyder all over again. It's all it would be.
Maybe worse. At least Dan wasn't a
Possible.
racist. Dan
Right.
never exhibited any.
He was just sexist,
racial-
not racist. Yeah.
Yeah, right. He only discriminated against women, not.
Yeah, right.
The old
Uh,
competitions of which is worse.
It's just like out of the. What's the old saying? Out of the
Frying pan into the
out
fire.
of, yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly what. But this guy truly is like a modern day Dan Snyder. If you go backwards and think, what did Dan Snyder come from? Dan Snyder
Yeah.
came from a sleazy telemarketing company
Right.
that got
And a weird
in trouble.
travel thing that he was doing. Yeah.
I think that's just minor. The telemarketer was the big thing, and they got
Yeah.
busted. They got fined. And he
The-
parlayed that into a team.
The very thing he made
It's
his
crazy.
fortune doing was made illegal as soon as he got out.
Yes, he was slamming people. That's
Yeah.
what he was doing. If you know what that is, you call him. You switch. Carriers. You switch providers. That's what he was doing.
Yeah.
And now we get this guy who's got some energy thing that nobody's ever heard of that's worth $50 billion, and
Right.
it's literally Dan Snyder all over again with a racial
Mhm.
component thrown in.
And somehow all these big deals were getting done, and none of them were ever reported in any major.
Nobody knows
publication.
about it. Forbes
Yeah.
doesn't know about anything about it.
Forbes, the Times, the New
Wall
York
Street
Post,
Journal, none of it.
or Wall Street Journal. Not the New York Post wouldn't know shit about this.
No, that's not their thing.
Actually, you know what? This guy's weird enough. He would probably try to get it in the Post rather than
Hey,
the
the
Wall Street
Post
Journal.
broke the Hunter Biden story, and it was true. So they
Yeah.
do know some things.
They
Right.
get some things. Bat Boy, that kind of stuff.
So all of this is to say, in my professional opinion, Brian Davis is full of crap.
Yes.
And he's not going to be taken serious at all by the NFL. There's no
No.
way. After all these decades of having to deal with Dan Snyder, and they're going to want an owner in there that's going to have experience at running a
professional.
team as a
Right.
professional, and they know what they're going to get with Josh Harris. I mean, you already see it in Philadelphia and New Jersey. They
This is
know
why-
what they're going to get.
This is why the NFL is evaluating the Harris bid,
Yes.
Right.
while
And-
Brian Davis is on with somebody called the Sports Junkies.
Yeah.
Right.
And look, I think the NFL does desperately want a minority owner. They're not going to get a guy like this. They know better. They're not that dumb. They're going to find somebody safe who they can put into
My
that
guess
role
is they were
somehow.
trying to really, break down Byron Allen's door. That'd be my guess.
Oh
And,
yeah,
he
I'm
probably-
surprised he didn't actually get a serious
I
bid
don't
in
know.
here.
Man, who knows? Maybe he doesn't want to do it. I don't know. But
Yeah.
that would be my guess. Is who
That
they
would
would
be
want.
the guy
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
All right. So some other news. Let's jump off this because we can't just rail against the stupidity for an
It's
hour.
so much fun to rail against this team. It would be the most. You got to admit, having this guy come in as an owner would be the most Washington thing ever, right?
Right. But Dan doesn't want that check to bounce, Steve. And you know that at least one check would bounce with this guy.
It'd be a wire. Either the money would get there or it wouldn't.
Right.
All right. So some
Jeez.
other news. The team did sign Jeremy Reeves, which is a good move. He made the Pro Bowl as a special teamer. That was a really nice little feel-good story last year, that
Absolutely.
video they did. And he's a good quality depth guy and special teams guy.
He might be a starting quality safety, you know?
He's borderline starter caliber, yeah. I think if they didn't have...
Always done well in the role when he needed him.
Yeah, I think they have two very good safeties ahead of him. But if one of them goes down, I'm very comfortable with him taking that spot.
He's an easy guy to root for. You know, he's likable. He's humble. He's worked his way up from nothing. He spent time in the practice squad. That Pro Bowl video, I watched that like 3 times. You know,
it was a 10.
Yeah, it was. Now, his contract, according to Spotrac, 1 year, $2.6 million. So that is what he signed with Washington.
It's pretty good money for, his kind of role there.
Absolutely. Good for him.
Yeah. Congratulations to you, Jeremy Reed. In other contract news, the big story this week, of course, the Eagles gave Jalen Hurts $1 trillion. No, not really, but
a lot.
A 5-year. You have the exact number, $255 million. What was the guaranteed?
Okay,
Steve?
So it's 5 years, $255 million. 179.3 total guarantees, $23.2 million signing bonus. And so what I think, and the details aren't really available yet because this has happened on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then we're recording this on Wednesday night. I think this probably means that he's got his first 3 years guaranteed. First 3 years base salary guarantee. That would be my guess is what that means. So $23 million signing bonus, 179 guaranteed. So my guess is he's got the last 75 million and probably mostly base salary, probably 65 million in base salary and a bunch of bonuses and stuff wrapped up in the last 2 years that they can just turn around and renegotiate if they keep him.
Yeah. I had heard that the salary cap stays very reasonable the first 2 seasons of this.
Yeah.
So
because I got something from a guy I work with through Sport Tracks, a guy named Paul Beckides on Sport Track.
Okay.
But it was it's 2023 to 2026. Jalen Hurts is only costing $73 million against the cap.
Well, Spotrac doesn't have any details, so.
Well, that's just what I have right there. I'm looking right at it.
Where's this guy getting it?
Yeah, it says via Spotrac. It's a guy named Paul Hembekaides.
Because I'm looking right at the page on Spotrac and it has no details.
Okay.
So, this was a tweet that he had put out.
Oh, a tweet. Okay. Well, maybe that's so. Say the numbers again.
Maybe he works there and they haven't published it yet, but
yeah, possibly.
Maybe. Yeah, because it's saying from 2023 to 2026, $73 million against the capital he's going to cost.
Over
and he
3
compared,
years?
he compared that to Carr, where he's 144, Daniel Jones at 162, Stafford at 170, Russell Wilson at 171, and our favorite quarterback, Deshaun Watson at 211.
And that is what, dead cap?
Yeah.
That's what's costing against the cap for those 3 years, yes.
Usually these teams, what they like to do, Washington's done this repeatedly. They'll have a really, really low first year base salary, like minimum low, and then the signing bonus really kind of makes up for the first year. And so the signing bonus will be, they did this with Deron Payne. The signing bonus will be sort of the amount of the base salary for the next couple of years. And they just get it all up front. So that way it keeps the cap hit low for the first year. And that might be what they're doing here. But point is, I think the big picture here is this a good contract? I mean, what do y'all think?
I mean, I think, look, you're always paying a premium now for quarterbacks. I would rather be giving someone like Hurts this contract than the Deshaun Watson deal any day of the week.
Sure.
If it were any of the top 10-ish quarterbacks, I'd say it's fine. And I think Hurts is in that top 10 conversation, no question at this point. So I don't think it's a bad deal for them. It'll be very interesting to see how it impacts the rest of that roster because what made him so successful was really that they built a great team around him on a cheap deal. And that's going to disappear now. Maybe not this year, but very soon you will start seeing a purge of all that talent because you can't keep talent around a superstar quarterback anymore. It's just you're giving him what 25% of your salary cap.
No.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, okay.
yeah, I mean, if his cap hit in the first year is, say, he got a $24 million, $23 million signing bonus and
Right.
minimum base cap, and then you split up the rest of it. I mean, let's say he's got over 179. That's 20, 30. That's about 30.
Okay, in the 30, not 50, which is what the average is.
Yeah, but like 25 million of a $200 million salary cap is
more like 12%.
Yes, that's what I'm getting at.
Okay, that's fair. But still, like we all know that it means you if you're getting that much, it means there's 2 or 3 guys who can't stay on the team in the end.
Look at Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
And look at Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, look at I mean, so many other teams. Look at the Packers. They've not been able to build around Aaron Rodgers because of his salary for years, and it's impacted them in the end.
And that's the one thing the NFL, or actually the Players Association, really look into. They need to find a way of capping these quarterback salaries because you're killing all the lower level players, and you're killing these teams being able to build a good balanced offense or whatnot just to move forward consistently every year because you got to pay the quarterback so much money. I mean, it's a travesty on what they do to running backs. I mean, they're disposable. They really are, but I tell you what, man, it's just, if they don't hit on their next contract in his first 3-4 years, they're basically done. I mean, for quarterbacks, they can get like 2 or 3 of these contracts going down if they're any good, and then you get your Blaine Gabbert of the world. They still find a number 3 role somewhere making like $6 million a year. It's like,
I've got a better one. Chase Daniels. He's barely played, and he's made a fortune. He's made lifetime money.
It's insane.
Well,
so I mean, and these players truly care about the younger players and truly care about the distribution of these contracts, so everyone can have that money to invest and being able to take care of their families like that and so forth. It's maybe one of these quarterbacks should just kind of come up and say, you know what? Nah, I don't want 45 or 50 million a year. All I need is 20 million a year. Make sure you put
Brady did that for a couple of years and it won him a whole lot of Super Bowls. Yeah. Undervaluing himself. We all know that.
I don't think very many people would do that though.
No,
absolutely
I don't think
not. No.
And look, it's not human nature to do that. I get that. No. But if you're going to have a union, that is where your union needs to say there is a collective good here for all,
who runs the
2,000
union?
People.
Who runs the union, do you think, though?
Well, right now it's Smith?
I'm not talking about who literally is in charge. Who's running who's the most influential
the players,
people?
Of course, I understand.
But what players?
All your star players, especially quarterbacks.
Bingo.
Sure.
Ding, ding, right there.
Well, I don't know.
You got
are any quarterbacks union reps right now? I don't think they are.
What's that?
I'm not talking about who's formally in a seat. I'm talking about who are the most influential people.
Sure.
And Dave has got the answer. It's the star players, the quarterbacks. And they are not. They're interested in themselves. And the thing about the especially football players unions that are different from like the electrical workers union, most of these guys have a 3 or 4 year career.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a constant short-term. This is why the NFL league usually gets the better of them in contract negotiations, because the unions, they're trying to think right now because they need to make their money right now because they're going to get too old and can't play, or too beat up and too hurt. They can't think long term. Sure. They never have.
Sure.
Now, as far as this Hurts contract now, there's a report that the Ravens offered Lamar Jackson a deal that was actually in relative standards pretty close, if not even actually a little bit more than what Hurts accepted.
Right.
And yet,
I hadn't heard that.
He
should have taken it. He should. Yeah. That's crazy.
And that was something they offered back in I think it was actually last year. I think they offered that deal. They said.
Yeah, I remember hearing something about that too.
Yeah.
So you're going to turn down 9 figures guaranteed, which sets your family up for generations over a little bit of pride. Right. I would have jumped on that.
It's whatever advice he's getting is very bad advice.
That's the problem.
Obviously.
He's not getting advice. That's the problem. He's getting like his mom, literally his
Well,
mother.
he's getting advice somewhere. It's just not. Yeah.
Lamar Jackson. I talked about this on IJB. We did a segment on this. Lamar. It's not just that Lamar can't negotiate a contract,
Right.
because truthfully, the contract doesn't change. It's a form approved by the. They can add some terms to it and stuff. He needs someone to sell himself.
Mm-hmm.
He can't call up the GM of like the Seahawks or whatever, and sell himself as nearly as effectively as like an agent like Drew Rosenhaus could do that. That's the real flaw in this. I think he just thought that the Ravens are going to open the wallet up. I don't need an agent to do that, and we'll get this done, and they're going to pay me a fortune. It'll be over. And little did they know, did he know that wasn't the case?
Yeah.
He needs to swallow his pride and hire an agent, like forthwith.
I mean, I almost think it's probably too late for anything for him now. It
may be too late for him to sign a $250 million contract.
That's for sure. I mean,
he may be on a prove-it year somewhere.
At the same time, do you think so? On the flip side of this, how much do you think the Browns are secretly kicking themselves for the bad deal they gave to Deshaun Watson? Because now we've seen a couple quarterbacks sign big deals, but it's not a terrible deal like the Watson deal.
Which I'll tell you, the other teams will not emulate. They are not going to follow suit that fully. It's just not going to happen.
It's not.
And that's what Lamar keeps trying to get. It's not happening.
The Browns are dumb. I mean, they've been dumb for a long time, and so it doesn't surprise me that they're the ones that do something stupid like that.
No, I would just have so many regrets.
Well, actually, if Dan Snyder had that opportunity, I guarantee he would have done that.
In the early days, when he was bringing in Bruce Smith and Deion Sanders and stuff, I think in the later days, he wised up a little bit. Dan did at least interfere and do really dumb on the field things less in his later part of his tenure. It was the early years
because he was broke. Let's also. Maybe.
But it was the early part of his tenure. He was signing Deion Sanders and all that craziness. He didn't he might have dictated Dwayne Haskins, rest in peace, but that was a draft pick. Yeah.
Supposedly, I think he dictated almost every first-round pick under Jay Gruden, is what it sounded like.
And we're going to talk about the draft next week, but I'd like to point out that in the past several years, the only offensive lineman drafted in rounds 1 and 2 that I can remember is Sam Cosmi.
Yeah.
So the Washington team went from a possible Hall of Famer, a multiple-time Pro Bowler, and a plus-level starting center.
Mm-hmm.
And all of those people are gone. In the case of Rui, he's been hurt. But they let both of those elite players go and replaced them with a bunch of Jags. And now they won't draft anybody. And you wonder what the problem with the team is. Forget corner. It's so stupid. If I was Washington, what are your biggest needs? Tackle, Paris Johnson.
Yeah.
Dave's right. I don't know. I haven't even read Dave's piece yet. But Dave's got a piece talking about this exact thing's coming out. What should they draft this week? But it's just so stupid. I mean, try to fill some needs. Why are you ignoring offensive line? Get an elite left tackle in.
And especially at tackle position, there's only like 3 really good elite level style offensive tackles in this draft,
and you're perfectly positioned to get one of them at 16.
Well, if it was, with some of the mocks that I've looked at, it almost seems like with the exception of Broderick Thompson out of Georgia, outside of him, there's nothing there at 16. Everyone being drafted in the top 10.
I don't know.
It's almost like they have to move up for it.
Not everybody can be drafted in the top 10.
Yeah.
No, but that's the thing. Now I've been seeing a lot of mocks where it's like all the early going where you get like 3 corners in the top 10. Now it's only really one, which is Christian Gonzalez. Even Devin Witherspoon has been kind of pushed out in some mocks outside the top 10. So
but there's also going to be a couple of good first-round caliber guards in this draft. I don't care what they draft. If it's a lineman, it's fine by me. I don't care where you plug them in. They just need help.
I just think that's obviously where they need to go. Yeah. Obviously is offensive line.
Yeah. So the last thing, speaking of bad drafting, the San Francisco 49ers are trading Trey Lance or shopping Trey Lance, who, just to remind you, they gave up 3 first-round picks for this guy. What was it, 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
I told everybody in my quarterback preview
Yep.
that he was going to be a bust, and look where we are.
Yep. He definitely, and part of it's injury. Can't control that, but definitely he's looking like a big old bust. I don't know what they'll get for him.
Because it's just a rumor, right? So now that they're kind of shopping or taking calls, at least
it's in the rumor category, but it's got a lot of heat for a rumor, a lot of smoke.
I mean, of course, Brock Purdy has a serious injury.
Yeah.
So I find it hard to believe they'd trade a quarterback without their starter maybe even being healthy.
Especially after letting Garoppolo go to the Raiders.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So who do they have left?
It's Kyle Shanahan. He's weird about quarterbacks, man.
So you think Washington has a bad quarterback room? Look at what San Francisco may have. They may have Brock Purdy, who's hurt, who's the 7th rounder, who had about a half a year of good, to his credit. And then you got a bust in Trey Lance, who you spent 3 first-round draft picks on and nobody else.
And you're trying to maybe get a 4th rounder for him right now.
That is a crappy quarterback room. Washington's quarterback room, but at least they've got Jacoby Brissett, who's a solid pro.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Jacoby Brissett has more starting experience than the entire 49ers quarterback room right now.
Oh, I know. So you think Washington has problems? That is problems.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how else we can respond to it. It's just ridiculous. And you and I were talking before. Malik Willis is also looking like a bust. The Anthony Richardson, he's the same guy. Stop going after these guys who are massive projects in the first round. I get liking some of the raw talent, I do, but if it's that much of a project, he's not a first rounder. I'm sorry.
We did our quarterback preview last week, but I sort of intentionally didn't publish the piece because we did that emergency podcast.
Yeah.
I'll publish it either today, meaning Thursday or Friday. But I thought Richardson was a 3rd round pick at best. He's got a ton of talent, natural ability, but he's not a good quarterback.
He needs a ton of work.
Yeah.
So did both those guys.
Jordan Love in Green Bay is a perfect example. He was not really a first-round quarterback, but Green Bay, having Aaron Rodgers, knowing the technical issues that Jordan Love had, he was able to sit behind him, hone his skills and everything. And now he's looking like for a limited time he's been in last year, and for what they're saying, how he's looking so far in shorts in the offseason, but he's actually looking cleaner in terms of his mechanics and everything, and that comes in time and development. Guy like Richardson's not going to get that.
Well, look no farther than the New York Giants to show a team who handled something properly in the realm of quarterbacks. Daniel Jones, everybody I thought they overdrafted him.
Sure.
They stuck with him when he was lousy. Everybody thought he should be benched, and they kept playing him and kept him in there. And now what's happened? He's turned into a serviceable, legit.
He still needs work. Let's be honest.
Absolutely, but he's not in the Hall of Fame, but he's a legitimate plus level starting quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess. I'm not even that hot.
Even Jalen Hurts. Did anybody watch his college films? College film was horrible at Alabama.
Right.
He's terrible.
Yes.
He wasn't even an NFL quarterback. He improved a little bit at Oklahoma, but when he came in the NFL, he didn't look good at all. He's improved a lot, but why?
Yeah.
Well, the Eagles have worked with him.
Right.
Yeah, they were patient. They gave him time.
Yeah.
I get that. But, it also depends, what do you have to work on with these guys? I feel like you look at Trey Lance, you look at a Malik Willis, you look at what Richardson might be, those are multi-year projects, no question, all 3 of them. If you were to take that risk, and I don't think you take a multi-year project in the first round.
No sooner in the 3rd round.
I think Trey Lance and Anthony Richardson have the same problem. This has always been my theory with quarterbacks. Some of them have so much natural ability, so much natural athletic ability, and such strong arms that every level they play at, they can just dominate through sheer just natural talent. But when you get to the NFL, that just isn't the case anymore, and their form is terrible. They're not used to reading the field. They're all of those problems are problems that they never fix because they have so much ability. Whereas you throw like a guy like Taylor Heineke, who from an NFL perspective has no talent,
Right.
by our normal people standards he does, but by NFL standards, but what does he do? He
grinds.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's not what these guys do. And so I think these quarterbacks like the Trey Lances and Anthony Richardson in the world, but like Jalen Hurts and Daniel Jones found a way to grind it out and get better.
Yeah.
Right.
Richardson could do the same thing. Maybe he will. Maybe he'll surprise me. But like Josh Allen, another one.
Yeah.
He was terrible in college. He couldn't throw a football. And he's gotten a little better, not a lot better, but they found a way to build around him,
He could throw a football deep. He couldn't throw it accurately.
He was not accurate at all. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is similar to Richardson.
Yeah.
Yeah. It will be very interesting to see what happens in a week with Richardson.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, I think that wraps up our topics. Did we have anything else we wanted to discuss today?
I feel like we talked over Dave all the whole show.
We did. I was going to talk about my coming cheese tour that I'm doing, but I'll save that for another day.
We can save it. Yeah, we'll save that for when we need to fill some time. Dave, did we cut you off in any way? Because this is a businessy show, So.
Well, that's the thing, though. I mean, that's kind of your forte, and I'm not going to step on your toes with that. I mean, no one wants to hear what I have to say when it comes to that because I don't know anything about that. So I just sit in the shadow.
You can take the common man opinion of it, Dave. How about that?
Well, I tried to a couple times, but then you get off another topic that was some good points. And when you talk about Brian Davis, that's all we're talking about, just the business aspect and what making him seems, shady, and it's just nothing aligns right. Nothing comes together like it should. I mean, basically because he has money that he doesn't have. But he was given money, but it's his money. That's really not his money.
Yes.
So how is he going to buy a team like that?
You got it. So you understood what I was saying.
You live in Philly. You're used to shady guys with money.
Well,
just remember this, people. If you take nothing else from our whole conversation, real bidders would not be talking for 40 minutes to the sports junkies because it would be right. Remember, if you remember nothing else, remember that an NDA would prevent a real bidder from doing that.
Well, you look at Josh Harris and go back to the Broncos ordeal. They that wasn't being broadcasted like that.
Nothing. Right.
So, nothing. So.
Yeah, but this is also his 8th team he's bought. So he's used to it. We might need to look and see what he was doing when he bought I guess the 76ers.
He knows the drill by now.
Yeah. All right, guys, that should wrap up this show. We will see you all next week. Bye.
See it.
We didn't go that long.
No.